Hello all of you, welcome back to this channel. Today here we are going to discuss about the location of centroid. तो जो हमारा लेमिना होता है और जो फिगर्स होते हैं, तो इसका सेंट्रोइड हम कैसे डिटरमाइन कर सकते हैं, आज हम इसी वीडियो पे देखेंगे। चलिए शुरू करते हैं। तो ऑल ऑफ यू, यहाँ पर आज हम पहले देखेंगे द रेक्टेंगुलर सेक्शन। ओके, सो दिस इज द रेक्टेंगुलर सेक्शन। So here I am taking a rectangular section. You can see here. Okay, so this is the rectangular section. We all know that the opposite sides are same, then we can say this is a rectangle section. Okay, so here what happen? So यहाँ पर हम लेंगे this is the x axis. So this line is the x axis line and this line is what? This line is the y axis line. Okay, so this is the rectangle section. Here this is the x axis and this is the y axis. So we know that हमको पता है what is the centroid of the this rectangle section. Then we can say the centroid is the middle point known as C. Okay, so this is the centroid point of the figure or the rectangular section. तो क्या होता है इसमें? तो हम यहाँ पर परपेंडिकुलर लाइन खींचेंगे up to x axis and here up to y axis. Okay, suppose the length of the rectangle is this point to this point is L and breadth is this point to this point is B. Okay, so here what is the centroid in x axis? Okay, so here we can say centroid about the x axis. That means C for the centroid, x for the x axis. From this point, इस पॉइंट से हम सेंट्रोइड तक जाएंगे जो कि हमारा परपेंडिकुलर लाइन आया है। तो यहां से यहां तक जो डिस्टेंस होगा वो L/2 होगा। ओके, सो हियर वी विल बी राइट L/2 इज द व्हाट? So here we can say x is the centroid about the x axis. Here L/2 is the answer. Okay, so next is what? Centroid about the y axis. Okay, so similarly, तो जब हम लेंगे सेंट्रोइड अबाउट y एक्सिस तो हम इसी पॉइंट से y एक्सिस तक जाएंगे। तो इसी पॉइंट से हमारा हम परपेंडिकुलर लाइन लिए हैं, तो जो डिस्टेंस आएगा इसी पॉइंट से इसी पॉइंट तक, दैट मींस दिस डिस्टेंस इज व्हाट? This distance is YC, means centered about the y axis. That means the whole distance is what? B. That means this is B/2. Okay, so here B/2 is the what? The centroid about y axis of this what? Rectangle section. Okay, so next we will be take a vertical section like that. So this is the rectangle section, vertical section. Okay, so this is the y axis and this is the x axis. Okay, so this is the y line, y axis line, this is the x axis line. Okay, so here what happened and how to determine the location of centroid about its x axis and location about its y axis. So here the breadth is what? Breadth is B. So this point to this point distance is B. And this point to this point distance is what? You can take L. Okay, L is nothing but the length. So here what happen? We will be find the centroid about the x axis and centroid about the what? Y axis. Okay, so in this case here the centroid point. So this is the centroid point. Okay, so centroid point is determines at the middle of the figure. So this is the rectangle figure. Here the middle point known as C is the centroid point. Okay, so this point is the centroid point of this figure. So here what happen? Here we will be find at first the centroid about the x axis. तो क्या होगा centroid about the x axis? So this is the y axis line and from this point the x axis line is started. Okay, for this figure we will be take the distance up to centroid. That means here the centroid about the x axis means what? This point for figure, this point यहाँ से यहाँ तक जाएगा, लेकिन यहाँ पर जो हमारा x axis है वो यहाँ से स्टार्ट हुआ। ओके, यहाँ से स्टार्ट होकर वो आगे चला गया। that means this section is we can take 0. Okay, so here the centroid about x-axis is 0. There will be questions appear in your mind, sir, why it is 0? Yes, it will be 0. You can see here. Here the y-axis is there. From this point the x-axis is started. That means we will be find the centroid about x-axis from the edge point of the figure. So this is the edge point of the figure, rectangle figure. So here we will be calculate the centroid from this point to this point. Okay, from the x-axis. That means here no axis is there. Okay, so axis is started from this point to this point. That's why it will be 0. Okay, so next centroid about the y-axis. That means this is the y-axis. So from this point you have to draw a perpendicular line like that. So this distance is known as what? So this distance is known as the centroid about the y-axis. So this whole is what? L. That means this is L by 2. Okay, so this point to this point is L by 2. Okay, so in this case, while the axis is in the middle of the figure and from this point the x-axis is there, so here the centroid about the x-axis is 0. Now we will be take a what? Horizontal rectangle. So this is the horizontal rectangle. So this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. Okay, this is the y-axis. Okay, so this is the body, or we can say the rectangle section. So here we can say this is the x-axis line and this is the y-axis line. So here what happened? Here at first we have to find the centroid point. So where is the center point? Always remember the centroid point located at the center of the body. Okay, so this is nothing but the centroid C. Okay, so here we have to draw the perpendicular lines. Okay, so this is the x-axis line. Okay, that means we have to take this distance as L and this distance is what? The B. Okay, so for this figure, what is the centroid about x-axis and the centroid about y-axis? So here क्या होगा? यहाँ पर हम पहले centroid लेंगे x-axis का. That means this is the centroid point. From this point you have to draw a perpendicular line like that. And this point to this point is the what? Centroid about the x-axis. So this distance is L, that means this is L by 2. So here the axis is L by 2. That means centroid about x-axis is L by 2. So here next is what? Centroid about the y-axis. That means here the x-axis is there. From this point y-axis is started. That means this distance will be 0. Okay. So here y centroid about the y-axis will be 0. Okay. Suppose इसी तरह आपको एक क्वेश्चन आएगा. So you have to find the centroid about the x-axis and centroid about the y-axis. So this is nothing but a rectangle figure. So here this is the centroid point C. Okay. From this point this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So you have to find out the centroid about the x-axis and centroid about the y-axis. Okay. तो ऑलवेज रिमेम्बर जब हम सेंट्रोइड लेते हैं वो सेंट्रोइड पॉइंट इसी पॉइंट से स्टार्ट होता है फिगर का. यहाँ से वो एक्स एक्सिस तक जाता है और यहाँ से वो वाई एक्सिस तक ऊपर तक जाता है अप टू सेंट्रोइड तक. ओके, सो हियर व्हाट इज द सेंट्रोइड अबाउट द एक्स एक्सिस? So from this point, so this is the centroid point. That means we can say this distance is, you have to take this distance is L. ओके, सो यहाँ से यहाँ तक जो डिस्टेंस है वो L है और यहाँ से यहाँ तक जो डिस्टेंस है वो B है. ओके, जब हम यहाँ पे अबाउट एक्स एक्सिस जब हम सेंट्रोइड लेंगे तो यहाँ से यहाँ तक जाएगा पॉइंट, लेकिन जो हमारा एक्सिस है वो यहाँ से शुरू हुआ, एक्स एक्सिस यहाँ से यहाँ तक आया और वाई एक्सिस यहाँ से ऊपर तक गया. दैट मीन्स दिस सेक्शन विल बी 0. दैट मीन्स एक्सिस विल बी 0. अगेन from this point y-axis is in offset, so that means this point to this point is known as the centroid point, but there is no y-axis is there. That means here we can say the centroid is also here also 0. okay, so इसलिए यहाँ पर भी हम 0 लेंगे जो कि हमारा y एक्सिस का सेंट्रोइड. So talking about the square section, what is the location of the centroid? So you can see here, this is the square section. Okay, so this is the axis here, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. Okay, for a square we know that the all sides are same. So this side is a, this side also a, this side also a, this side also a. So here this is the centroid point C. Always we are taking the centroid at the middle of the figure. Okay, so from this point to this point, the axis C. Okay, what is axis C? Axis C means the centroid about the x-axis is what? This distance is what? A. That means this is a by 2. So this is a by 2. Similarly, for centroid about y-axis is equal to what? From this point to up to the centroid point, this distance is yc. That means this point to this point is a. That means this point is a by 2. Okay. So here also a by 2. So here the another figure is like that. You can see here. This is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. You can see here. Okay. So we know that the distance is, this is the a, this is the a, this side is a, this side is also a. Okay. So here we will be find out the centroid about the x-axis. This is the centroid about x-axis and this point is the centroid point. So इसी पॉइंट से यहाँ तक जो डिस्टेंस होगा वो 0 हो जाएगा. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पर एक्सिस जो स्टार्ट हुआ, यहाँ से स्टार्ट हुआ यहाँ तक एक्स एक्सिस और यहाँ से ऊपर गया वाई एक्सिस. दैट मीन्स दिस विल बी 0. सो यहाँ पर हम 0 लिखेंगे फॉर सेंट्रोइड अबाउट द एक्स एक्सिस. सिमिलरली सेंट्रोइड अबाउट द वाई एक्सिस, तो हमारा इसी पॉइंट से स्टार्ट होगा ऊपर तक अबाउट द सेंट्रोइड. दैट मीन्स दिस डिस्टेंस विल बी व्हाट? The a by 2. Okay, that means here the centroid about the y-axis is what? A by 2. Okay, so here this is the y-axis. From this point it will be in upward direction, but here the x-axis is there. That means the x-axis is not started from this point, it is started from this point. That's why it will be 0. Okay, so this distance, that means this is the axis centroid about the x-axis will be 0. Here next is the circular section. So here you can see this is a circle. Okay, for this circle this is the x-axis line and you can see here this is the y-axis line. Okay, so the centered point is located at this point, means at the middle point of the figure. Okay, so here this distance is the what? Centroid about the x-axis. Okay, so this is the centroid about x-axis, this distance, and from this point to this point means this distance is what? Centroid about the y-axis. Okay, that means here we will write centroid about the y-axis. So all of you we know that हमको पता है जो कि हमारा सर्कल का जो रेडियस होता है वो r होता है. दैट मीन्स this point to this point we can take this is the radius r. So here also this point to this point the radius will be r. Okay, that means the distance will be here also r and here also r. Okay, so here the centroid about the x-axis for a circle is its radius r. Okay, and the centroid about the y-axis for the circle is also the radius. Okay, so next here you can see this is the circle. These are located in this direction, in this way. Okay, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. So this is nothing but the centroid point C. Okay, so here what is the axis C? Means the centroid about the x-axis and centroid about the y-axis. तो यहाँ पर भी हम लेंगे the centroid about the x-axis. That means from this edge point, this is the centroid point of the x-axis. That means this is, it will be 0. Okay, that means there will be no axis here. Okay, the axis is started from this point to here x-axis and here y-axis. That means this will be 0. Again, what is the centroid about the y-axis? That means here this is the edge point. In this point to this centroid point to centroid point, it will also be 0. Okay, that means the centroid about the y-axis will be 0. So that's the location of the centroid for a circular section. You can see on the board. For a triangle section, how to find the location of centroid? So this is the right angle triangle. Here you can see. Okay, so this is the x-axis line and this is the y-axis line. So always remember the distance is what? This point to this point distance, we can say the h, the height of the triangle, and this point to this point, this is the base B. Okay, so this is the centroid point C. Okay, from this point, this is the axis C, the centroid about the x-axis, and this point to this point, here the centroid about the y-axis. So always remember, this is the height h. So here y is what? H by 3. This is the centroid about the x-axis is also what? This is b by 3. Okay, so you have to remember these things. So for a triangle or right angle triangle, we can say the centroid for the x-axis is b by 3. So the base is b, and the centroid for the y-axis is what? H by 3. That means the height is what? H. So this is h by 3 and this is b by 3. So all of you, this is all about the location of centroid for different sections. So we have to understand, or we have to remember all of the things. So thank you all of you. See you in the next video.